You're too boring, Mark. I need a real life, Sarah said, laughing, before heading out for another girls' night. Mark sprinted across the rain-slicked field in Seattle, whistle clenched between his teeth, urging the youth soccer team to push harder during their final drill. At 35, he was a software engineer by day, but coaching these kids every Saturday brought him a spark of purpose. The parents on the sidelines clapped, shouting encouragement, their trust in him palpable. He waved back, grinning, then jogged to the bench to pack up cones, his mind already drifting to home, where things felt less certain. Sarah, his wife of 10 years, waited there. A marketing manager with a sharp wit, she'd been his anchor since their college days at the University of Washington. They'd built a solid life, a sleek condo in Capitol Hill, steady careers, shared dreams of a family. But those dreams had stalled. Years of negative tests and doctor visits had chipped away at their optimism, leaving a quiet strain neither acknowledged. Mark buried himself in work and coaching, convincing himself their bond was unshaken. Sarah, though, seemed restless. Tonight, she'd planned another girls' night with her friend Lisa. Mark didn't mind. Lisa was a constant in their lives, a cheerful graphic designer who'd been Sarah's confidant since high school. But as he drove home through the drizzle, a nagging memory surfaced. Last week, his colleague Brian had mentioned seeing Sarah at a club downtown, not the cozy restaurant she described. She was having a blast, Brian had said, laughing. Mark had shrugged it off, but the comment lingered like a splinter. He pulled into the condo's garage, the hum of the engine fading as he sat for a moment, staring at the concrete wall. Sarah's words from last night echoed. "You're too predictable, Mark. I need a real night out." Her tone had been playful, but the jab stung. She'd laughed it off, tossing her hair as she headed upstairs, but it felt like a challenge. He shook his head, grabbing his gym bag, and stepped into the elevator. The steel doors closed, mirroring his resolve to ignore the doubt creeping in. Inside, Sarah was in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone. She looked up, flashing a quick smile. "Good practice?" she asked, already turning back to her screen. Mark nodded, dropping his bag. "Kids killed it. You heading out soon?" She confirmed with a hum, mentioning dinner with Lisa at their usual Italian spot. "Maybe a drink after," she added, her voice casual but clipped. Mark watched her move to the bedroom, the door clicking shut behind her. He sank onto the couch, the TV flickering on mute. Her word from last night replayed again, sharper now. Predictable. The accusation gnawed at him. He trusted Sarah, always had, but Brian's comment and her dismissive tone were starting to align in a way he couldn't ignore. He pulled out his phone, hesitating, then searched for GPS tracking apps. His thumb hovered over the download button. This wasn't him. He'd always prided himself on trust, on giving her space. But the splinter of doubt had grown into something heavier. The shower hissed from the bathroom. Mark's pulse quickened. He downloaded the app, his fingers moving fast to pair it with Sarah's phone while she was distracted. The setup was simple, discreet, syncing in seconds. Guilt twisted in his gut, but so did a need for clarity. He deleted the app's icon from his home screen, ensuring no trace remained. The shower stopped, and he shoved his phone into his pocket, heart racing as if he'd just run sprints with the team. Sarah emerged, her purse slung over her shoulder. "I'll be back by 11, she said, avoiding his eyes. Mark forced a smile. "Have fun. Say hi to Lisa." She nodded, already halfway out the door. The lock clicked, and silence settled over the condo. He opened the app. A blue dot pulsed on the map, marking her phone in the garage below. As it began to move, his stomach tightened. He wasn't sure what he'd find, but he knew he couldn't stay in the dark any longer. Mark stared at the blue dot on his phone, tracking Sarah's movements as it cut through Seattle streets. The GPS app's map glowed in the dim light of the condo, each shift of the dot pulling him deeper into unease. She'd said dinner with Lisa, but the signal veered away from the Italian restaurant she'd named, heading toward Belltown's nightlife district. His jaw tightened. He grabbed his keys, slipped on sneakers, and headed to the garage, the hum of his car engine matching the buzz in his chest. The city blurred past as he followed the dot, keeping a safe distance. Rain streaked his windshield, wipers slicing through the haze. The app showed Sarah's phone stopping at a club called Neon Pulse, a hotspot known for its thumping music and carefree crowds. Mark's mind raced. She'd never mentioned clubs, always framing her nights out as quiet dinners. Her words from last night, "You're too predictable, Mark," echoed, now laced with a sharper edge. He He parked a block away, the neon sign of the club flickering in the distance. He sat in the car, gripping the steering wheel, debating his next move. Confronting her in public could spiral into a scene, but turning back felt like surrender. The app confirmed her phone hadn't moved. He stepped out, the damp air hitting him as he walked toward the club's entrance. The bouncer waved him through, the bass from inside vibrating in his bones. The crowd was thick, bodies swaying under flashing lights. Mark scanned the room, his pulse hammering, searching for Sarah. He spotted Lisa first, leaning against the bar, laughing with a stranger. No sign of a cozy dinner. Then, in the center of the dance floor, he saw Sarah. She moved with a confidence he hadn't seen in years, her arms draped around a man's shoulders, tall, younger, his hands resting on her hips. They swayed in sync, her laughter cutting through the music. Mark froze, his breath catching as the man leaned in, their lips meeting in a brief but deliberate kiss. She didn't pull away. The sight burned into him, a mix of shock and clarity. He didn't charge forward or shout. Instead, he backed toward the exit, the noise of the club fading as he processed what he'd seen. Sarah's casual lie about dinner, her ease with this stranger, her dismissal of him as predictable. It all clicked into a painful truth. Their marriage, once vibrant, had become a hollow routine, and she'd found an escape he hadn't noticed until now. Back in his car, Mark's hand shook as he opened the GPS app again, confirming her phone was still at the club. He drove home, the city's lights blurring into streaks. Inside the condo, he sat on the couch, the silence heavy. He didn't want to confront her tonight, not out of anger, but to plan something calculated. Her betrayal wasn't just the kiss. It was the secrecy, the mockery of his trust. He opened his laptop, searching for ways to gather proof without breaking laws. A small voice recorder caught his eye, legal in Washington for personal use. He ordered it with overnight shipping, his decision firm. Tomorrow, he'd place it in her car, hidden in the glove box, to capture her conversations with Lisa. If she was lying about her plans, he'd have evidence, not just suspicion. The thought of spying twisted his gut. He'd always valued openness, but Sarah's actions had shifted the rules. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling, her words replaying, "I need a real night out." The sting of them fueled his resolve. When Sarah's key turned in the lock at midnight, Mark closed his laptop. She stepped inside, humming softly, her purse swinging. "Fun night?" he asked, keeping his tone neutral. She nodded, claiming she and Lisa had a blast at the restaurant, even describing a dessert they shared. The lie was effortless, her eyes avoiding his. Mark forced a smile, wishing her good night as she headed to bed. He stayed awake, the recorder's delivery confirmation already pinging his phone, his plan taking shape. Mark woke to the sound of a delivery truck outside the condo, the faint rumble pulling him from a restless sleep. The voice recorder had arrived. He slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Sarah, who was still asleep, her phone charging on the nightstand. Downstairs, he retrieved the package, a small black device no bigger than a key fob. His fingers hesitated over its cold surface, guilt warring with determination. Last night's image of Sarah kissing another man in the club burned in his mind, pushing him forward. He waited until Sarah left for her morning jog, her routine as predictable as she'd once called him. In the garage, he opened her car door, the faint scent of her perfume lingering. He tucked the recorder into the glove box, securing it with adhesive tape, and activated it via his phone. Washington law allowed this for personal use, but the act still felt like crossing a line. He shut the door, his heart pounding, and returned to the condo, the app now syncing audio in real time. By noon, Sarah was back, chatting about work as if nothing had changed. Mark nodded along, his focus on the app's live feed, though it picked up only static for now. She mentioned another girls' night, with Lisa on Friday, her tone breezy but her eyes darting away. "Same place?" Mark asked, keeping his voice light. She shrugged, saying they might try a new spot, maybe in Pioneer Square. The vagueness sharpened his suspicion, but he let it pass, biding his time. Over the next 2 days, the recorder captured mundane drives, Sarah's work commute, a coffee run with Lisa. But late Thursday, a conversation shifted everything. Sarah's voice crackled through the app as she spoke to Lisa on speakerphone. "Mark's clueless," she said, laughing. "He thinks I'm a book club or whatever. I'm meeting Ryan again tomorrow. He gets me, you know." Lisa's voice was hesitant. "You sure about this, Sarah? Mark's a good guy." Sarah scoffed. Good guys don't make you feel alive. Mark's stomach churned as he listened, hidden in the condo's spare room. Ryan. The name gave form to the stranger from the club. Each word from Sarah sliced deeper, her casual dismissal of their marriage a fresh wound. He saved the recording, his hands steady despite the rage simmering inside. Confronting her now would be messy, emotional. He needed control, proof that couldn't be denied. Friday night would be his chance to catch her in the act. Undeniable. When Friday arrived, Sarah left early, claiming a happy hour with Lisa. Mark opened the GPS app, watching her signal head straight to a bar in Pioneer Square, not the restaurant she'd implied. The recorder's feed buzzed with music and laughter as she parked. Mark grabbed his jacket and drove, the city's lights streaking past. He parked 2 blocks from the bar, a gritty spot called the Rusty Anchor, known for its live bands and loose vibe. The recorder picked up Sarah's voice, giggling with a man, Ryan, he assumed. Inside, the bar was packed, the air thick with sweat and beer. Mark stayed near the entrance, scanning the crowd. He spotted Sarah at a high-top table, her hand resting on Ryan's arm, their heads close as they shared a drink. Lisa wasn't there. The recorder caught snippets of their flirtation. "You're so different from him," Sarah said, her voice low. Mark's chest tightened, but he didn't approach. He snapped a discreet photo with his phone, the timestamp syncing with the audio. He left before they noticed, his mind racing with next steps. Back home, he backed up the photo and recording to a secure drive, his plan crystallizing. He wouldn't confront her tonight. Too much risk of a public blow-up. Instead, he'd wait until she returned, armed with evidence that would force honesty. He sat on the couch, the recorder's feed still active, capturing Sarah's laughter as she left the bar with Ryan. The sound cut deeper than any image, but Mark stayed calm, his resolve hardening for the confrontation ahead. Mark sat in the darkened condo, the glow of his laptop screen casting sharp shadows. The voice recorder's audio file, time-stamped from last night at the Rusty Anchor, looped silently in the background, Sarah's flirtatious words to Ryan etched in his mind. The photo he'd snapped, her hand on Ryan's arm, their faces inches apart, sat open on his desktop, undeniable proof of her betrayal. He'd spent the night organizing evidence, his anger channeled into precision. Tonight, he'd confront her, not with rage but with facts. Sarah's key turned in the lock at 11:47 p.m., her footsteps light as she entered. She kicked off her shoes, humming, and called out, "Mark, you up?" He closed the laptop, his pulse steady despite the storm inside. "In here," he replied, voice calm, from the living room. She strolled in, tossing her purse onto the counter, and launched into a story about her happy hour with Lisa, describing a fictional cocktail they'd shared. Each lie tightened the knot in Mark's chest. He stood, cutting her off mid-sentence. "Sarah, sit down. We need to talk." Her smile faltered, and she perched on the couch, eyes narrowing. "What's wrong?" she asked, her tone defensive. Mark pulled out his phone, opened the GPS app, and set on the coffee table. "You weren't at a restaurant last night. You were at the Rusty Anchor. With Ryan." Her face drained of color, her mouth opening, then closing, as she scrambled for a response. Before she could speak, Mark played the recording. Her voice filled the room, laughing with Ryan. "You're so different from him." She froze, her hands gripping the couch. He slid the phone toward her, the photo of her and Ryan glowing on the screen. "I saw you," he said, his voice low but firm. "I heard you. Stop lying." Sarah's eyes darted to the door, then back to him, her composure cracking. "Mark, it's not what you think," she stammered. He shook his head, cutting her off again. "Don't. Just tell me why." His question hung heavy, demanding truth. Sarah's shoulders slumped, and she stared at the floor. "I felt stuck," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "You're always at work or with the kids' team. I needed something more." Her words stung, but Mark didn't flinch. "So you chose him?" he asked, pointing to the photo. She nodded, tears welling, but offered no excuses. The silence stretched, thick with years of unspoken distance. Mark leaned forward. "I trusted you, Sarah. Completely. But you mocked that trust, mocked me." She tried to interrupt, claiming it was a mistake, but he raised a hand. "I'm not angry. I'm done pretending we're okay." He pulled out a folder from his laptop bag, containing divorce papers he'd downloaded that morning. "We're splitting everything fairly. The condo, the savings. I want this clean." Sarah's tears fell freely now, but she didn't protest. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she whispered, her voice breaking. Mark nodded, his expression softening but resolute. I know, but you did, and I ignore the signs too long. He slid the papers toward her. Read these. We'll talk details tomorrow. She took the folder, her hands trembling, and stood, retreating to the guest room without another word. The door clicked shut, a final punctuation. Mark exhaled, the weight of the confrontation lifting slightly. He moved to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and stood by the window, the Seattle skyline glittering below. The marriage was over, but the clarity brought relief. He opened his phone, deleting the GPS app and archiving the audio file. The evidence had served its purpose. Now he needed to rebuild, not for revenge, but for himself. He texted his lawyer, scheduling a meeting to finalize the divorce, his mind already turning to the future. Mark woke to sunlight streaming through the condo's windows, the space quieter without Sarah's morning routine. She'd moved to her sister's apartment a week ago, after signing the divorce papers in a lawyer's office downtown. The process was swift, clinical, assets split evenly, the condo now his. He stood in the kitchen, brewing coffee for one, the absence of her presence no longer a pang, but a step toward freedom. Today, he'd coach his youth soccer team, a ritual that anchored him. On the field, Mark blew his whistle, guiding the kids through a passing drill under Seattle's crisp autumn sky. Their laughter and focus reignited his sense of purpose. After practice, he lingered, chatting with parents, their respect for his dedication evident. One suggested he join a local gym to stay active off-season. The idea stuck. That afternoon, he signed up at a fitness center in Fremont, not for vanity, but to reclaim energy he'd lost to routine. At the gym, Mark navigated the weight room, awkward among the clanging machines. He focused on simple exercises, his body protesting but willing. During a break, he noticed Emma, a woman in her early 30s, adjusting a treadmill nearby. She cursed under her breath as the machine stalled, and Mark offered a quick fix, recalling a similar issue at work. She laughed, thanking him, her direct gaze disarming. "You're a lifesaver," she said, introducing herself as a physical therapist. Their chats became a gym routine, brief, easy exchanges between sets. Emma shared stories of her chaotic hospital shifts, her humor cutting through Mark's guarded exterior. One morning, she suggested coffee at the cafe next door. Over lattes, they talked about her recent breakup, her ex's volatility, and Mark's fresh divorce. He kept Sarah's betrayal vague, focusing instead on his hope to move forward. Emma's openness, free of judgment, felt like a new beginning. Weeks later, Mark invited Emma to watch his team's game. She cheered from the sidelines, her enthusiasm matching the kids. After, they grabbed burgers at a nearby diner, the conversation flowing effortlessly. She admitted she admired his patience with the team, a quality her ex lacked. Mark felt a warmth he hadn't known in years, not from flattery, but from genuine connection. He walked her to her car, their hands brushing, a quiet promise forming. 3 months into their friendship, Emma texted Mark to meet at the cafe after a Sunday workout. She arrived, her usual confidence tinged with nerves. Over coffee, she slid a pharmacy test across the table, the word positive stark against the white stick. "I'm pregnant," she said, her voice steady but searching. Mark's breath caught, memories of failed attempts with Sarah surfacing. He took her hand, his voice firm. "We'll figure this out together." Her eyes softened, relief washing over her. They spent the afternoon planning, doctor visits, schedules, no grand declarations, just practical steps. Mark felt a surge of purpose, different from the duty he'd clung to with Sarah. Emma's pregnancy wasn't a replacement for past losses, but a chance to build something honest. He drove her home, their silence comfortable, her hand resting on his as they pulled into her driveway. For the first time, Mark saw a future not defined by betrayal. A month later, a letter arrived from Sarah, forwarded from her sister's address. In it, she apologized, her words raw. "I was selfish, Mark. You deserve better. I'm trying to be better." He read it once, then set it aside. He didn't need her remorse to move on. He texted Emma, confirming dinner plans, and stepped onto the soccer field for practice, the kids' shouts filling the air. His life was his own now, built on choices that honored his worth, not her mistakes.